Welcome, fellow dreamer. Tonight, I invite you to join me on a gentle journey back through time, to walk beside me through a day in the life of a student in the Soviet Union together. We'll step into quiet dormitories and snowy streets, hear the rustle of worn textbooks and morning radio announcements, and feel the rhythm of daily life shaped by ideals, structure, and quiet hope. This is a story of discipline, youth, and resilience, a glimpse into a world behind the Iron Curtain, where ambition and routine unfolded under the gaze of history. I hope these images and words will guide you gently toward rest. Before we begin, take a moment to dim the lights, settle into a comfortable place, and let yourself drift into the quiet pulse of a vanished era. I created this video to help you relax, unwind, and slowly drift into sleep. I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Let me know in the comments below. It's always moving to see how these stories connect dreamers across the globe. And if you enjoy this journey through a student's life in the USSR, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tap the bell icon so you'll always have a place to return when you're ready to fall asleep to the stories of the past. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let our journey through the Soviet classroom begin. You wake as a student in the Soviet Union, young, thoughtful, quietly determined. You are studying engineering. It's a field that matters here, one the state respects. Structures, circuits, formulas, the kind of knowledge that builds bridges, powers factories, or carries steel across great distances, the kind of knowledge that fits neatly within the party's vision of progress. But for now, all of that is still somewhere ahead of you, folded within the hours of the day not yet begun. The ceiling above you is blank, concrete, cold, unpainted. A pale strip of daylight leaks in through the edges of a thin curtain. Outside, the sun has not yet cleared the rooftops, and the sky remains the soft, unlit gray of a Soviet winter morning. Somewhere beyond the walls, the familiar clang of a tram rattles across the tracks. Pipes groan in protest as the building stirs to life. Your bed is simple, an iron frame with chipped white paint and a thin mattress that dips in the center. The wool blanket covering you is scratchy but heavy, striped in dull army green. Beneath it, the sheets are cold against your legs. But there's comfort in this weight, in this stillness, in the knowledge that, for now, you are not late, not yet. You sit up, slowly, rubbing your eyes with the back of your hand. The room is small, no more than 4 meters by 3, and still dim. You share it with another student, also in his second year. He sleeps soundly across from you, wrapped tightly in his own blanket, turned toward the wall. The bed creaks faintly as he shifts in his sleep. The two of you have lived together for months now. You know each other's habits, though you don't speak much. You know the way he eats his bread, how he sharpens his pencils, the rhythm of his breathing when he's fallen asleep too quickly to bother with reading. Beside the beds is a narrow desk pushed under the window. It holds the essentials: a chipped enamel cup, a half-spilled box of matches, your textbooks lined up like brick sand, a single red-covered notebook filled with your neat diagrams and equations. A lamp with a cracked plastic shade leans slightly to one side, its bulb burned out weeks ago. You haven't bothered replacing it. It's easier to borrow light from the hall when needed. Near the foot of your bed is a radiator, old and chipped. It groans, pops, then begins to hiss gently. Warmth will come soon enough to take the bite out of the air. not enough to forget the cold. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed. Your feet land on the bare floorboards, scuffed and dry, splintered in one corner. A pair of felt slippers waits under your chair, one folded in on itself. You put them on, still half blind with sleep, and shuffle to the small basin tucked into the corner. There's no running water in the room, just a jug filled from the hallway tap the night before. You splash your face and hands. The water is cold, almost sharp, and it jolts you into the present. A towel hangs on a nail beside the wardrobe. You pat your face dry and feel the air bite again at your cheeks. You dress in layers, a cream-colored undershirt, a dark wool sweater that smells faintly of the storage room in the basement. Your trousers pressed against a warm pipe the night before to shake out the stiffness. You button them slowly. The light from the window has grown a little stronger, now soft and gray and indirect. It casts a square shape onto the floor beside the desk, as if marking the boundary between inside and outside, between stillness and movement. Your coat hangs by the door, along with your fur hat and a scarf your mother knitted. They wait like sentinels, ready to follow you into the wind. You plug in the small electric kettle. It rattles and hums and gives off a faint metallic smell as it heats. You sit at the desk, waiting for the water to boil, your hand resting on the notebook's worn cover. You open it, glance over yesterday's calculations, formulas running down the page in blue ink, sketched diagrams of pressure valves and coil systems. You trace one of the lines with your finger. The kettle clicks off. You prepare a cup of black tea loose leaves from a small tin wrapped in paper. You drop a single sugar cube into the mug. They come from home, sent in a cloth sack once a month. You ration them carefully. Stirring slowly, you bring the mug to your lips and breathe in the steam. The warmth spreads through your fingers, your chest, your shoulders. You sip. Outside the window, the courtyard below begins to stir. A woman in a heavy coat and scarf walks past, dragging a burlap sack of kindling. Her boots crunch faintly on frost-covered concrete. Across the way, a boy in a fur cap lifts a bucket of coal through a basement window. The buildings are all the same here gray, 5-story Khrushchevkas built in rows, like a set of concrete dominoes left standing. The window pane has fogged in the corners from your breath. You draw a small circle in the mist with your fingertip, just enough to see a sliver of the street beyond. You stay there for a moment longer, the tea warm in your hands, the notebook resting quietly beneath your elbow. The dormitory is still quiet, your roommate still asleep, the city beyond just beginning to blink awake. The day will come soon enough. Lectures, the crowded tram, the lunch line, the slow march of pages and pages of state-approved knowledge. You'll find your place among it, tall as you always do. But for now, in this still and quiet hour, you are simply here, a student, in a small room, in the heart of a vast country, holding a cup of tea, breathing in the calm before the day. You step out into the hallway, your boots making a low, hollow sound on the linoleum. The light overhead is dim-yellowed and flickering slightly. The walls are pale green halfway up, bare concrete above, cracked in places, with faint watermarks that trace strange shapes in the stone. You pass rows of identical doors, each one marked with a faded number, each one guarding a room much like yours. From behind one, you hear a muffled cough. From another, a low voice singing to a radio. Somewhere down the corridor, someone is boiling potatoes early, but not unusually so. At the stairwell, you pass a group of second-year students, laughing quietly as they adjust their scarves. One has a rolled-up newspaper tucked under his arm. Another is still chewing a piece of bread, brushing crumbs from his coat. You nod to them as you pass, and they return the gesture. That quiet acknowledgement shared between students, the kind that needs no words. The stairwell smells faintly of cigarettes and floor polish. Your gloved hand slides down the metal rail as you descend, boots clicking against the worn steps. A draft slips in through the cracks in the windows. You reach the ground floor, pass by the dorm matron's deska, broad slab of wood. Beneath a portrait of Lenin, and push open the heavy outer door with your shoulder. The cold greets you immediately. It presses against your cheeks, sharp and dry, as if the air itself is made of powdered glass. Your breath clouds in front of you, trailing in slow curls. You tighten your scarf around your neck and pull your fur hat lower over your ears. The sky above is a dull, blank gray, the kind that stretches on endlessly, without sun, without shadow. The dormitory behind you is tall and blocky, 5 stories of straight concrete and small windows, just like the others that line this part of the city. Built fast, built cheap, built to house hundreds. You know their shapes by heart, but in the haze of morning frost, they seem to blur together. A few doors down, a group of students emerges from another building, carrying books under their arms, steam rising from the mugs they cradle in gloved hands. You walk with purpose, your satchel slung across your shoulder, bouncing gently against your side. The sidewalk is dusted with snow, just enough to muffle your steps and soften the edges of the world. The street lamps are still on, their yellow light flickering over the icy sidewalk. A dog trots past, head down, its coat shaggy and pale. It pays you no mind. The city hums quietly at this hour, not yet loud, but alive. The rumble of a trolleybus rolls over the frozen air. Somewhere far off, a truck backfires with a sharp crack. The smell of coal smoke and exhaust mingles in the cold, drifting from chimneys, from vents in basement boiler rooms, from small fires lit by early workers. You reach the tram stop, where a few others wait, huddled under the shelter. A pensioner in a heavy brown coat stares blankly down the track. 2 women speak in hushed tones, glancing from time to time at their watches. A fellow student stands beside you, hands jammed into his coat pockets, his glasses fogged at the edges. You nod to him, and he gives you a faint, sleepy smile. The tram arrives with a low squeal of metal. Its red paint is dulled by years of grime. The number above the windshield barely visible. The doors open with a hiss. You step inside. The warmth of the tram is immediate, and you feel it settle over your face, your hands. Inside, the car is dim, its windows fogged from breath and frost, its walls lined with faded slogans. A cracked poster near the front reminds passengers to be vigilant, to report suspicious behavior, to honor the working class. A photograph of a factory worker shaking hands with a party official hangs askew above the driver's cabin. You find a place to stand near the back, gripping the cold metal rail. The tram lurches forward. It clatters down the track, past rows of leafless trees and gray buildings, past kiosks selling sunflower seeds and old paperback books, past crumbling brick walls, plastered with layers of political posters and event announcements, lectures, concerts, poetry readings, most already canceled. Out the fogged window, the city unfolds in its familiar monotony. There is beauty here, if you know where to look. A warm yellow light in a bakery window, the lines of laundry hanging frozen between balconies, the careful placement of a single potted plant in a stairwell window. Life peeks out from between the cracks. The tram stops twice more. A mother boards with her daughter in a wool coat, a young man with a violin case, an older man in a worn military coat who nods to no one. The tram moves again, rattling along through the city's quiet veins. As you ride, your eyes drift downward to your satchel. You know what waits inside: your engineering notes, your drafting compass, 2 pencils sharpened to different points, and a wrapped piece of black bread from the canteen. You feel their weight not just on your shoulder, but in your day ahead, heavy, familiar, uncomplaining. The tram rounds a corner, and through the steamed window, you catch your first glimpse of the university. It rises like a fortress above the street, grand in scale, brutal in design. Its wide steps are swept clear of snow. Above the entryway, chiseled into pale stone, are the words, "Knowledge for the people. Knowledge for progress." High above, a red flag flutters against the sky, barely moving in the still air. You disembark with the others. Boots crunch against packed snow. Your breath hangs thick. The university's walls tower over you, rectangular, symmetrical, built with purpose. A pair of stone lions flank the entrance, their faces stern, impassive, like everything else here. Inside those doors, there will be fluorescent lights, parquet floors, the smell of chalk and steel pipe. You know those halls well. You pause at the bottom of the steps for just a moment. Around you, other students stream into the building, shoulders hunched against the cold, scarves pulled up high. Their breath mingles in the morning air, drifting upward like signals to no one. And then, quietly, you join them. You climb the stairs, one by one, until the doors swallow you into the warmth of the school, and the outside world is left behind. Inside the university, the warmth hits you like a slow-moving wave. It isn't cozy, never that, but it's a relief after the raw cold of the street. The building smells faintly of damp wool, chalk dust, and radiator steam, the kind of air that clings to your coat and softens your voice. The entry hall is wide and tiled, dimly lit by square overhead fixtures that buzz faintly. The floor beneath your boots is cracked in places, the tiles dulled by decades of foot traffic. A portrait of Lenin hangs high above the reception desk, his gaze fixed forward in that familiar, unwavering way. Below him, a faded bulletin board lists upcoming lectures, political meetings, and new guidelines for winter dress. Most of it you've seen before. Some of it will never happen. You make your way up the stairwell, your hand trailing along the worn banister. The walls are painted two-tone, green along the bottom, gray above, separated by a neat dividing line that's begun to peel in the corners. Every hallway echoes your footsteps, someone coughing on the next landing, a door closing far down the corridor. You reach the lecture hall, room 213. The door is propped open. Inside, students are already gathering, their breath still faintly visible in the lingering chill. The room is long and narrow, filled with rows of wooden benches, polished by generations of use. At the front stands a tall chalkboard, slightly warped, its green surface ghosted by half-erased equations and dates. Beneath it, the professor's desk, a simple wooden table stacked with folders, textbooks, and a battered chalk box. You find your usual seat about halfway up. Not too close, not too far. You settle in, placing your satchel on the bench beside you. withdrawing your notebook and pencil. Your hand moves instinctively, flipping to a fresh page. The notebook is lined, the cover stiff and plain. Its pages smell faintly of glue and paper dust. Around you, students whisper in low voices. Some lean forward, already reviewing their notes. Others sit back with glazed expressions, their thoughts still caught somewhere between the tram ride and breakfast. A few have red stars pinned to their lapels. Komsomol members. You notice them, but not too carefully. The room quiets as the professor enters. He is tall and thin, with deep-set eyes, and a gray wool suit that fits him in the way that all Soviet suits do. Boxy, sturdy, respectful of lines more than comfort. He carries a folder under one arm, a ruler, and a stick of chalk in the other. His expression is stern but not unkind, worn smooth by decades of discipline. He walks without hurry, setting his things down in silence. He clears his throat. The room falls completely still. The day's topic, fluid dynamics. He begins without flourish, writing the first equation across the board in long, measured strokes. Chalk squeaks faintly. Symbols unfold across the surface, familiar ones. You've studied these in your room, in the library, over weak tea in the cafeteria. But now they live again beneath his hand, reshaped by context, by method, by his voice as he explains each variable. You take notes carefully, your pencil moving steadily across the page. Your handwriting is clean, controlled, the marks slanted just slightly to the right. It's a kind of discipline in itself, this act of copying, of keeping pace. The professor doesn't pause often. He expects attention, and most of the time he gets it. He speaks in that specific tone you've come to recognize, a mixture of confidence and obligation, not passion exactly, but conviction. There is little room for creativity here, but there is precision and there is clarity. He pauses only to underline key terms or to glance up and make sure no one is falling behind. A few do, but they won't say so aloud. No one ever does. You shift in your seat, rolling your shoulders quietly. The bench is hard, and the room is warm, now uncomfortably so. Coats hang over the backs of chairs, and the windows are slightly fogged. The radiator ticks along the far wall. Somewhere behind you, someone sneezes. No one responds. The professor continues. Now he moves into application real-world scenarios, hydroelectric systems, industrial cooling, aircraft design, all things you're unlikely to touch directly, but they matter. You write more quickly now, abbreviating where you can. Your pencil is dull. You pause to sharpen it, catching just a few words in the process, but it's enough. You've learned to fill in the blanks later. Occasionally, he asks a question. A few students raise their hands, those who always do. You think of an answer, but keep your hand down. It's safer that way. A wrong answer doesn't bring shame, necessarily, but it brings attention. And attention is a currency you spend carefully here. Still, you listen, you learn. You shape your understanding in silence, drawing knowledge slowly toward yourself like water through a narrow pipe. Time moves strangely in the lecture hall. Minutes stretch, pages fill. Your mind drifts, occasionally just a little. You catch yourself watching the chalk dust as it floats downward, catching the light in a slow, weightless fall. You glance at the bookshelf in the corner of the room, its volumes worn and identical, their spines labeled in block letters. You trace the edges of a carved name in the desk with your finger, someone who sat here years ago, maybe decades, and wanted to leave a mark. Eventually, the professor sets down the chalk. He turns toward the room, his hands behind his back, and offers a final explanation, a summary. He speaks more slowly now, his tone heavier. He ties the topic back to industry, to production, to duty, to the idea that your learning is not for yourself alone, but for the state, for progress, for a future built by precision and purpose. There is no applause, no conversation. The students gather their things, quietly rising from the benches. You do the same, sliding your notebook back into your satchel, brushing bits of chalk dust from your coat sleeve. You glance once more at the board. The equations will be erased by the next class, but they've already taken root in your mind. They will return in your notes, in your thoughts, in tomorrow's repetition. You step out into the hallway. Another lecture waits down the corridor. You're ready. But for a moment, just a breath, you let yourself pause beside the window, watching the gray light filter through the glass, the frost tracing delicate veins across its surface. Outside, the city continues slow, heavy, purposeful, and within you the same rhythm beats on. You feel it before you hear it, the slow rumble in your stomach, the faint pull of fatigue behind your eyes, the heaviness settling into your shoulders. The morning's lectures are over. Your notebook is fuller now, its pages a quiet record of hours spent sitting, listening, absorbing. Around you, students move with the same silent agreement. It's time for lunch. The corridors begin to fill, not with chatter, but with motion. Scarves are tied again, satchels slung back over shoulders. Boots shuffle along cracked linoleum, and the air grows warmer as bodies gather, packed shoulder to shoulder in slow lines, moving toward stairwells and exits. You follow the current down the main hall, past the worn wooden doorways, past the posted announcements and peeling notices for upcoming party meetings, poetry recitations, and volunteer work at the library. Most of them have been up for weeks. No one removes them. They simply fade into the background, layered over one another like old wallpaper. The smell of food reaches you before the doorway appears. It's unmistakable, a mixture of boiled potatoes, damp bread, and something fried in sunflower oil. Familiar, not unpleasant, but heavy. Like everything here, it's functional first. You step into the stolovaya, the student canteen. It's a large, high-ceilinged room with pale yellow walls and long rows of metal-framed tables covered in oilcloth. Most are already occupied. Students sit hunched over trays, speaking in low voices or eating in silence. A few lean over notebooks even now, reviewing notes between spoonfuls of soup. The air is thick with steam from the kitchen and the smell of starch and yeast. On the far wall, a large poster of smiling workers lifting bread and books declares, "Study is labor. Labor is honor." The line forms fast. You take your place behind a young man with a Komsomol badge pinned to his lapel. Ahead, a girl balances a book on one arm while scanning the printed menu, though there's little need. The options rarely change. A painted sign above the serving counter lists the day's offerings in block Cyrillic letters: pea soup, buckwheat, kasha, minced meat, cutlet, rye bread, stewed fruit, compote. As you move forward, a tray is pushed into your hands, metal, slightly dented, cold to the touch. You slide it along the track, watching as the servers ladle and scoop without expression. A bowl of thick pea soup is placed before you, followed by a scoop of kasha that holds its shape like wet sand. The cutlet is set beside it, browned on the outside, its edges slightly curled. A slice of rye bread lands on a napkin. no butter today. A glass of dark amber compote is poured from a heavy jug and passed across. You nod in quiet thanks. No one speaks much here. Not the staff, not the students. It's a space of ritual, of efficiency. You scan the room. Most tables are full, but there's a spot near the back, beside a window, half fogged with condensation. You make your way there, weaving between chairs, careful not to let your tray slide. You sit, setting your tray down with a soft clatter. The bench is hard and cool beneath you, but there's relief in the stillness. Around you, the quiet murmur of student voices continues. Two students argue gently in whispers about a math problem. Another rests her chin in her hand, staring out the window. In the far corner, someone hums, just under his breath, a folk tune that seems older than the building itself. You take your spoon and begin. The soup is thick and salty, with pieces of carrot and potato. The kasha is dense, but warm. You break the slice of rye in half and dip it into the soup, letting it soften before chewing. The cutlet is dry around the edges, but seasoned well enough. The compote, always the final reward, is sweet with hints of dried apple and prune. The food does what it must. It fills the emptiness, warms the chest, quiets the nerves. But more than that, it marks the center of the day, the pause between mental labor and whatever comes next. It's a moment of grounded calm, surrounded by others who, like you, are carrying the weight of silent ambition, silent expectation. You glance across the table at a fellow student, one of the boys from your chemistry class. He lifts his eyes from his tray, offers a nod. You return it. No words are exchanged. They're not needed. The window beside you has begun to clear slightly. Outside, the gray sky remains unchanged. A few flakes drift down lazily, landing on the concrete ledge and melting into nothing. A group of younger students walks by, laughing, scarves trailing behind them, boots stamping through the slush. You feel the warmth of the canteen more fully now, shielded from the wind, surrounded by breath and steam and the clatter of spoons. You finish slowly, wiping the last of the soup from your bowl with the remaining piece of bread. The glass of compote leaves a faint ring on the tray. Around you, others begin to rise, returning trays to the metal rack, bundling scarves, tightening their coats. The next lecture awaits, or study in the library, or a short walk to clear the mind before more numbers, more facts, more repetition. You sit for a moment longer. Your tray is empty, your stomach full. The warmth of the room lingers in your chest. Your thoughts are slow but content. There is no urgency, no anxiety, just the quiet, persistent rhythm of a day lived in balance, with limits, with rules, but also with moments like this. You gather your things, stand, return your tray to the counter, where it joins dozens of others, stacked and streaked and steaming. The door to the corridor swings open ahead of you, and the cool air slips in again. The building breathes. You step through. The canteen fades behind you. Its smells, its clatter, its warmth. The hallway stretches out, familiar and gray, and you walk onward, ready for the next quiet hour. After lunch, the world moves slower. The canteen fades behind you, its warmth replaced by the cool breath of the hallway. You walk through familiar corridors, your satchel light against your side, your hands still faintly scented with chalk and soap. Each step echoes off the concrete, the rhythm steady, your mind gently beginning to drift, again not toward class, not yet, but toward quiet. The air outside is colder now, though the sky remains the same pale, unchanging gray. You take the side path behind the lecture hall, your boots crunching on gravel and snow. A wind stirs through the bare trees, rattling the last dry leaves like old paper. Ahead, the library waitstall, still dignified, one of the oldest buildings on campus. It was built of thick stone and dark brick, long before the modern dormitories or cement lecture blocks rose around it. You approach the heavy double doors, their dark wood polished by 1,000 hands. There is no sound from within, only the quiet suggestion of breath behind thick walls. Inside, the warmth is slow and dry. You pause in the vestibule to shake off the cold, your coat releasing small puffs of frost. The light is softer here, less fluorescent, more amber. Dust floats gently through the air, caught in the glow from shaded bulbs overhead. You sign your name in the visitor log at the front desk, the pen attached by a string to a chipped wooden stand. The librarian glances up briefly, round glasses, gray bun, the sharp expression of someone who knows the exact location of every volume in the building. You nod. She nods back. No words are spoken. The reading room is long and silent, filled with rows of wooden tables and chairs. Along the walls, shelves stretch from floor to ceiling, stacked with journals, textbooks, and leather-bound volumes, some new, some cracked with age. Their spines bear long numbers and blocky Cyrillic titles. There's a solemn weight to the room, as if knowledge itself has settled here and does not wish to be disturbed. You find your usual seat. The wood creaks as you pull the chair back. You set down your satchel carefully, your hands already moving with practiced quiet. From inside, you retrieve your notebook, a mechanical pencil, and a folded sheet of equations you copied last week. You smooth the paper flat and inhale deeply paper, dust, old glue. The scent is strangely comforting, like memory held still. Around you, other students sit with the same reverence, some bent over notes, others reading slowly, tracing each line with their fingers. No one speaks. Even movement is hushed. Here pages turn like whispers. Chairs shift like breath. A cough, when it comes, sounds distant and quickly dies. You flip open your notebook and begin to review. Formulas, diagrams, problems worked out in the margins. You underline important parts, rewrite a step you misunderstood the first time. The pencil glides over the paper with the soft scratch of concentration. The rest of the world fades. Now and then, you pause, lifting your eyes to the tall windows along the far wall. Their frames are frosted over at the corners, but you can see out just enough. The trees beyond sway gently in the wind. A crow perches on a branch, feathers ruffled. Below, a janitor clears snow with a wide bristled broom, his movements methodical and slow. After a time, you rise to retrieve a reference book. You walk softly across the room, past rows of students and shelves. The floorboards creak faintly beneath your boots. You reach the card catalog, a tall wooden cabinet filled with hundreds of narrow drawers. Each holds index cards typewritten yellowed, filed by subject. You slide open a drawer marked Applied Mechanics and begin to sift through the cards, your fingers tracing the raised letters, searching for a number you already half remember. Once found, you make your way to the proper shelf, walking slowly, reverently. You find the book thick, bound in faded cloth, the cover stamped with an emblem, and the year of publication, 1958. You carry it back like something fragile, settling once more into your chair. You open it carefully. The pages are thin, their edges browned. The diagrams are hand-drawn, shaded in ink. You follow the lines with your eyes, translating them slowly into understanding. You copy a few passages into your notebook. There is satisfaction in this, the steady work of gathering knowledge, shaping it into your own. Hours pass unnoticed. The light outside shifts just slightly. The windows dim further. Lamps click on, one by one, casting circles of soft gold across the tables. You roll your pencil between your fingers, flipping back to an earlier page. A number seems off. You correct it. You pause, and then continue. Nearby, someone rises to stretch, their chair scraping gently. Another closes a book and wraps their scarf with tired precision. But you remain. The work is not rushed. There is time here, time for careful thought, for quiet repetition, for the long, slow practice of becoming something more than what you were. Eventually, you stop, not because you are done, but because your hands are growing still and your thoughts are softening around the edges. You close your notebook, return the borrowed volume to the cart, brush crumbs of eraser from your coat. As you step into the hallway once more, the librarian glances up. You nod again. She returns it without words. Another ritual complete. Outside, the cold meets you again. The wind has picked up. Snow drifts in thin, slow spirals across the walk. But inside your coat, you carry the warmth of quiet effort, of pages filled, of understanding grown, not with urgency, but with care. The day is not over, but the hardest part is past. And as your boots crunch along the path back toward the dormitory, or perhaps toward a brief walk through the city, before supper you carry the calm weight of your studies with you, like a second layer of warmth beneath your scarf. Evening approaches slowly. By the time you return from the library, the shadows have thickened, stretching across the courtyard like pools of ink between the buildings. Street lamps buzz to life one by one, their yellow light casting long beams across the cracked pavement and frozen patches of snow. A bitter wind rises through the alley, funneling between the dormitories. You pull your coat tighter around your shoulders and keep your head low against it. Your boots thump up the concrete stairs of your building. Inside, the air is warmer, but carries with it the unmistakable scent of damp wool, boiled cabbage, and something vaguely metallic, perhaps the rusted pipes or the heavy radiator in the corner. You nod to a neighbor as you pass, an older woman in felt slippers and a thick housecoat, hauling a plastic bucket of water back to her room. She gives you a brief, tired glance and continues on her way. Back in your dormitory room, your roommate is already home. He sits hunched over the small desk, a reading lamp clipped to the shelf above him, its light casting deep shadows on the floor. A radio murmurs softly on the windowsill, tuned to a classical station, something orchestral and slow. A kettle warms on the electric coil beside it, steam beginning to curl from its spout. You remove your coat, your scarf, your gloves layer by layer until your body feels light again. You set your satchel down by the bed, unlace your boots, and take your seat near the window, where the air is cooler, but the quiet is deeper. For a time, you say nothing. He says nothing. There's no need. In the company of familiarity, silence becomes its own language. Eventually, the kettle clicks off. Your roommate pours 2 mugs of tea. You take yours with thanks, the ceramic warm in your palms. You hold it close to your chest and exhale slowly. The day begins to settle into you like steam into cloth. There is a rhythm to these evenings. Sometimes it changes. Often it does not. A knock on the door breaks the quiet. It opens to reveal one of your classmates, Victor, tall and broad-shouldered, always with a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He carries a deck of cards and a bag of roasted sunflower seeds. Behind him, two others linger in the hall: Marina, who studies biology, and Dima, who writes poems in the margins of his textbooks. They step inside without hesitation, pulling chairs close, sitting cross-legged on the bed, warming their hands over the mug your roommate offers. Soon, the desk is pushed aside slightly to make room. The cards are dealt. A game begins, one you've played many times before. The rules second nature now. Conversation flows in low tones, scattered between turns. There are jokes, of course old ones, complaints about the heating, the queues at the bread kiosk, the professor who never blinks. Laughter, not loud but genuine, fills the small room and softens the walls. Someone produces a harmonica and begins to play softly a folk melody from somewhere rural, maybe from the Volga or from Belarus. It winds between you all like a thread, tying you together for a brief moment. The room smells of tea and tobacco, leather and wood polish. It smells like young lives held in pause. Later, someone brings up a book, a forbidden one. Not outrageously so, but frowned upon. A translated Western novel, borrowed from someone's cousin who works in a shipping depot. The cover is folded, the pages worn. Marina reads a line aloud, her voice hushed. It's something about love or loneliness. You can't be sure. But everyone falls quiet for a moment, as if they've suddenly remembered the world beyond these walls. And then the moment passes. The conversation moves again, turning now to the Komsomol meeting scheduled for Thursday, whether or not you'll attend, whether anyone cares. Dima rolls his eyes. Victor makes a joke about slogans. You all laugh softly, with restraint, but the tension breaks again. It's strange, this double existence. Out there, beyond the windows, the rules are different, precise, expected. You stand in line, you attend, you participate. In here, in the soft, flickering light of your room, things are looser, softer. You speak in code. You share what you wouldn't write down. You say little, but understand much. As the evening winds on, your friends begin to gather their things. Marina wraps her scarf tight around her neck. Victor cracks one last joke before disappearing into the hallway. The others follow with murmured goodbyes. The door clicks shut behind them. Your roommate yawns. He turns off the radio. The silence returns, but it no longer feels empty. You take your mug to the sink at the end of the hall. The floor is cold underfoot. The walls sweat slightly with moisture. A girl stands near the radiator, combing her wet hair. She doesn't look up as you pass. Back in your room, the lights are dimmed. You sit by the window once more, pressing your fingers to the cold glass. Outside, the city is quiet. Snow falls again light, like dust. The lamplight catches each flake as it drifts downward, weightless, soft. You think about the day, the hours of study, the warmth of soup, the pencil marks on your notes, the sound of Marina's voice as she read from that tattered book. You think of home wherever it is, and what your mother might be cooking tonight. You think of the exam next week, of the future, of the unspoken hope that one day all this learning, all this waiting, will open a door you can't yet see. For now, this is enough. You change into your nightclothes, wool socks, an old cotton shirt, pants with a patch sewn into one knee. The bed creaks beneath you as you lie back, the mattress firm, the blanket rough but warm. You draw it up over your shoulders and let your eyes adjust to the dark. Your roommate breathes steadily. The radiator ticks. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughs and quickly quiets again. You close your eyes, and in the quiet, between the remembered lines of poetry and the fading sound of the harmonica, you begin to drift. The light in your dormitory room is low now, just a dull glow from the bulb above your desk, softened by a scarf draped over its shade. Everything is quieter. The laughter from the hallway has faded, replaced by the distant hum of the radiator and the occasional creak of old floorboards beneath someone's passing footsteps. You're alone again. Your roommate has already gone to bed. He lies on his side beneath the blanket, his breathing slow and steady, arm tucked under his head. In sleep, he seems smaller somehow, softer. The edges of stress, studies, cold, expectations have melted from his face. He is just a young man again, not an engineering student, not a number on a state list, just someone tired, someone resting. You sit a while longer at the desk, your legs curled beneath you. The mug in your hands has long gone cold, the dregs of black tea leaving a dark ring at the bottom. You haven't sipped from it in half an hour, but the shape of it in your palms is comforting, familiar. You stare into it as though it might tell you something. Outside the window, the city has turned inward. The streets are mostly empty now. A few figures move along the sidewalks, shadows in coats and hats, their breath clouding in the lamplight. Snow falls lightly again, drifting slowly under the streetlights, collecting in soft waves along the rooftops and windowsills. Somewhere in the distance, a car rumbles past, then nothing. The silence returns. You lean closer to the glass. It's cool to the touch. You draw a small circle in the fog with your fingertip. Beyond it, bare branches move gently in the breeze, and the buildings across the way glow faintly. Each window a square of quiet life. A desk lamp still burning, a figure in silhouette, a curtain shifting. Here at night, everything feels suspended. You rise from the chair and cross the room slowly. The floor is cool beneath your socks. You move carefully so as not to wake your roommate. You reach the wardrobe and pull out your journal. It's hidden behind a stack of notebooks, tucked between two textbooks to avoid questions, not because it holds anything forbidden, but because it's private. And in this world, privacy is a kind of treasure. You bring it back to the bed, slipping beneath the blanket with it resting on your knees. The paper crackles faintly as you open it. Its pages are filled with your handwritings, some hurried, notes on your thoughts, small sketches, quotes from books you're not supposed to read, dreams that don't yet have shape. Tonight, you write slowly. You write about the cold, the color of the snow, the way the window fogs when you breathe near it. You write about the sound of Marina reading poetry, about the harmonica tune that still loops quietly in your memory. You describe the stillness of the library, the chalky smell of your lecture hall, the silence after the lights go out. You do not write anything revolutionary, nothing dangerous, just truth, just detail. You try to capture the feel of this life, this moment, this version of yourself, because you know it won't last forever. Even if everything else stays the same, you will change. And this record may be the only thing that understands what it was like to be you, here, now. After a few pages, you stop. You close the book and slide it under your pillow. Not hidden, exactly, just held close. You lie down. The blanket is heavy across your body. You shift until the mattress dips comfortably beneath your shoulder. Your head settles into the pillow. You stare at the ceiling, the shadows shifting with the slow movement of light from the street lamp beyond the curtain. The night stretches around you like a breath held in the lungs of the building. The radiator ticks softly, expanding and contracting. Pipes murmur behind the walls. Somewhere, water drips slow and rhythmic. A clock ticks behind the door. These are the sounds you fall asleep to. Not silence exactly, but the quiet breathing of an old system still moving forward. Your thoughts begin to wander. You think about home, your family, the apartment, the smells of dinner on the stove, the radio playing as your mother ironed clothes near the window. You think about the posters on your childhood wall, the names of cosmonauts, the shape of your father's coat when he left early for work in the winter. You think of what you've learned about machines and formulas and bridges that hold weight and power plants that light cities. You think about how knowledge feels heavier now, how it presses against your ribs like responsibility. You think about the future, the assignments that wait for you, the job you might be sent to, the possibility that you might one day teach what you're learning now, or build something that stands long after you're gone. And then you think about smaller things. The way the tea tasted earlier, slightly bitter but grounding. The feel of worn paper under your hand. The way Victor always smirks before he wins a card game. The way snow sounds when it falls, if it makes any sound at all. The world outside fades further. You feel yourself floating somewhere between memory and dream. Your limbs grow heavy. Your breathing slows. You hear your roommate stir once in his sleep and then go still again. Tomorrow, the sun will rise in its own quiet way. You'll rise with it. You'll walk the same halls, sit in the same seats, listen to the same voices. But for now, none of that matters. There is only this room, this blanket, this warmth, this soft breathing beside you, this city asleep in gray snow, this life simple and repetitive and real, folding gently around you like the corners of a page turned by a careful hand. And in this stillness, held softly by shadows and silence, you let go of thought. You let the day fall behind you, slow and without effort. You let sleep come, not all at once, but in waves, a kind of quiet gravity. And finally, it finds you. The room is still, truly still, now settled, weighted at rest. The steam in the radiator has faded to a low, contented hiss. The light outside has dulled into soft halos, the snow continuing to fall in near invisible layers. The sky above the dormitory is dark and deep, smudged with faint city glow. Behind it, stars wait silently, unseen but there, as distant as possibility. You lie in bed, wrapped in wool, the blanket firm against your chest, the cotton of your pillow cool against your cheek. The darkness is not oppressive. It is soft. It wraps around you like fabric soaked in calm. Sleep has not yet fully claimed you. Instead, you drift in that in-between space, half in your room, half inside yourself. Your body is still, but your thoughts move slowly through the quiet. They flicker like candlelight across the inside of your mind, never loud, never sharp, just present. You think about tomorrow. You think about the morning, your boots by the radiator, the click of your pencil against paper, the small square of light that creeps across your desk at sunrise. You think of the lecture ahead, hydraulics perhaps, or the history of steel. You imagine your professor's voice, again, steady and certain, drawing neat lines between facts and ideology. You think of your notebook, filled with numbers and careful diagrams. It sits in your bag beside your bed, pages bent and penciled with memory. Tomorrow, you'll add more. You'll write down what you must. You'll listen. You'll stay quiet. You'll nod when expected. But behind those tasks, behind the repetition, is something else. A question, a thread. You think? Two, of what waits after that, after university, after the exams and assignments and evaluations. You think of your assignment, the post you'll be given, the factory or office or ministry you'll be sent to, somewhere in the country. You don't know where yet. None of you do. It will be announced in spring, quietly, definitively, as though the decision was never really yours to begin with. You'll go where they tell you, and you'll do what's required. But some part of you wonders, will it be enough? You turn your head slightly on the pillow. Your roommate still sleeps beside you, his breath soft and even. The moonlight finds its way through the crack in the curtain and falls across his blanket in a quiet stripe. You listen to him breathe, and for a moment, that sound steadies you. It is good, sometimes, not to be alone in this. But even in this shared stillness, your thoughts keep moving. They reach backward, toward childhood, barefoot summers in your village, smoke curling from the chimney, your grandfather's hand on your shoulder as he taught you to mend a fence or carry firewood. He spoke little, but his silence had weight. You wonder what he would say if he could see you, now this student version of yourself, buried in books, dreaming of something just outside reach. You remember your mother's letters, folded neatly, written in careful script, each one scented faintly with laundry soap. She never complains, she never asks for anything, but you can hear the hope in her words. Hope that you're warm, that you're eating, that you're learning something useful, that one day all of this will turn into a future worth holding. And what does that future look like? You don't know, not exactly. You picture yourself in a modest apartment, perhaps in a new city, a window, a desk, a shelf with your old textbooks, a kettle, a clock, the things that make a place feel real. Maybe you'll work in design or logistics. You'll wake early, take the tram, shake hands, stamp papers, speak carefully. You'll make enough to get by. You'll eat buckwheat in the evenings, and your books will stay within reach. Maybe you'll marry, maybe you won't, but you'll continue. That's what everyone does. They continue. And yet, even as you imagine this, another part of your mind begins to drift again, toward something less defined. A flicker of a dream you haven't named aloud. You see a train window, fogged with breath, a foreign sign, a language you do not yet speak, a book that has not passed through a censor's hands, a conversation with someone who has never heard of your hometown. You feel the tug of it, the pull toward something unknown, and then, almost as quickly, you push it away, not out of fear, but out of practicality. You know how things work here. Dreams are not forbidden. They are simply shelved, wrapped in silence, and stored away in the corners of your mind for quieter years. Still, even in silence, they breathe. You sigh softly. The room shifts slightly with your breath. The blanket moves. The window pane, frosted around the edges, glows faintly with moonlight. From somewhere down the hall, the building makes a low, groaning sound. Pipes, perhaps, or wind pressing against the bricks. It sounds almost like an exhale. Your thoughts begin to slow now. The rhythm of the day fades into background memory. The lecture, the canteen, the library, the conversations after dark. It all folds in on itself, becoming something smaller, simpler, weightless. You feel your body soften into the mattress. your limbs heavy, your eyes half-lidded. The pull of sleep is closer now, closer than the room, closer than the cold, closer than the world itself. And in those last few minutes before dreaming, a single word flickers through your mind. Tomorrow, not with anxiety, not with urgency, but with quiet curiosity. What will tomorrow hold? The same walk, most likely, the same desk, the same hands on the same railings, the same smell of tea and chalk and cold concrete. But maybe, just maybe, something else. A thought, a line of poetry, a spark of something deeper. You don't need answers now, only the questions. And as the snow thickens outside and the silence deepens inside, you finally let yourself go into warmth, into rest, into sleep, and the dreams that wait there, still unwritten,